think he said yes.
Yes.
Yep.
The only thing worse than my eyesight's my hearing. Welcome to the Municipal Building Commission meeting of September 4th, 2024 at 5:30 at City Hall. Call the meeting to order. For the record, I am here, Andrew, Terry, Ed, Jackie, Jerry, and Jay. Gail is absent. Peter Gagne has resigned due to work schedule conflicts, so if you know anyone who is interested, or there's anyone out there in our vast viewing audience who's interested, I would think they should contact the mayor to indicate their interest, and because we do have an opening now on the commission. Just a slight preview, there may be the need for a school building committee meeting to do an update and perhaps take care of some bills. Mason is working on that. It might be a double header with our first meeting in October as a way of easing the burden, so just keep that in mind. Also, next Wednesday at 5, not at 5:30, we will be in the Zito room. We will be interviewing for the library candidates, who we're going to get to choosing those in a minute. And then, as long as we're on a roll on this, so what's the date of our October meeting?
Let's see, first Wednesday in October.
Looks like the 2nd, Wednesday the 2nd, so that might be a double header, folks. So I'm gonna write that down, 10-2.
October 2nd.
No, Jack, next week is here or at the high school?
Zito,
It says Zito room.
Zito at 5. So, we have minutes to approve from August 7th. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. And then, Mason, we need to amend the June 5th minutes?
Correct, yeah, so there was an invoice that was approved at that meeting when we were doing some due diligence, just realized that it had inadvertently been excluded from the minutes, so just wanted to make sure we corrected the record and got that on there.
Is there a motion to amend those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. I guess we should get Courtney up first. Hi.
Good evening. Can everybody see me this month?
Oh, yeah.
Good to go.
Oh, good. Good. So I guess I can start with Pawtucket.
Sure.
I can, actually, I'll just go through a quick update, and then I actually have some pictures to share because the station is on site. Excuse me. So the big thing in August is the site showed up, the actual station showed up. It's on site, it's anchored. The roof and soffits are done. They've begun the chain link fence to surround the site, and they're working on granite curbing. Excuse me. This week they're working on the guardrail and the actual site itself, the infiltration basin. But if I can go, let's see. Okay. See if I can get this to work. Sorry.
Oh, we like your wallpaper.
It came with the laptop. So apologies, I'm not an expert at making slideshows, but any of these. I'm a little bit slow here. Oh, come on. All right, I'll keep talking about the site. It's apparently going to install. Come on. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, there is, the station when it arrived, came on the truck back there. certainly impressive to see. This is the crew on site actually placing the station. Come on, open another one.
Courtney, do you want to zoom out at the bottom right?
I'm trying. Here we go. Thank you. My remote laptop is not the fastest. Okay, so here they are actually placing the site. It looks like it's over their head, but I promise it's not. And I do have another where it is actually placed, and you can actually, oh my gosh, come on. And you can actually tell what the site's actually kind of gonna look like. So there it is in place.
Good.
If you look over to the left, that's going to be our high lift pump room, with the analyzers and that type of equipment, and these two rooms off to the right, which I'll show both of these rooms in a minute. Those are the chemical feed areas. There's one for the bleach, and there's going to be one for the corrosion inhibitor and hydroxide. Camera. So I'll show you those first. This is actually, whoops, I keep zooming out way too far, apologies. Okay, so this is our bleach room, the disinfectant. So we have our storage area with scale and containment, and these are the feed pumps back here.
And so all of this was built in the factory then?
Yeah, basically all this is built off-site, and it basically just needs to be hooked up and wired.
Well, that's impressive.
These are our high lift pumps, so these are the pumps that are actually going to feed out to the system. It's a 1 million gallon a day plant. So each of these pumps is 1 million gallons a day. So when we do our testing and our flushing and whatnot, we'll alternate so that we make sure that they're both available, but there is complete redundancy there. And you saw it in the chem room as well, if I can get in there. My menu keeps popping down, apologies. Yeah, so if you look in the chem room, the pumps back here, either one of those will do the full capacity that's needed for the plant, and that's for all three chemicals. So it's looking good. We're almost ready for a site visit. Maybe October and November when the site's a little bit cleaner and we're not kind of cordoned off with caution tape back there. But we're finally nearing an end.
Good.
I
So
know.
just remind us, what's our completion date here?
Completion date, we're expecting a functional station, fingers crossed, by the end of the month. We will, let me stop sharing so you can see me. Okay, am I back?
Only reduced. The picture hasn't disappeared.
Okay. But we're expecting a fully functional station by the end of the month. Basically, we have to test everything, pump it to waste, make sure it works. And then in the coming months, we will actually be pumping to the station.
So we have all permits in place so that once the station is finished, we could actually operate it if need be?
We can.
And what would your ETA be? Are we talking 1st of November or?
It should be around there. Again, it's an emergency source, so once all the testing's done, it will actually stay and sit, just for alarm testing quarterly, and the intent is that we will use it for spring flushing in 2025, when we flush South Attleboro.
Okay. Questions? Seeing none. Is there a bill that we need to approve relating to that or not?
Yeah. Sorry, nope, not on this one, but there was a change order that was brought before or was sent in today. This is a deduct change order. Entirely up to the commission if they want to go ahead with approving it. Everyone has a copy in their packet outlining the two changes. Again, this is just purely a deduct change order. We had discussed it previously with change order number 2 when we had talked about some of the additions. We had just broken it out because there was 4 additions in the last change order, and then this is the 2 deductions. The first one is a deduction there was an allowance totaling $22,000 for electrical work, and only 18.9 was used with the N-Grid. So there's ultimately a deduction coming back to the project for just over $3,017.13. And then additionally, there was another bid item for gas relocation allowance. This was about $86,000 that was included in the construction contract for the relocation of the gas main for site improvements. Ultimately, it was completed by Eversource in February, and they are not going to be seeking reimbursement. So that allowance is no longer needed. So we're going ahead and recognizing that change, the total credit change order being $97,690.82. Or sorry, I apologize, $89,017.13. The reason for recognizing some of these changes now and not just at the end of the project is sort of the funding source of this project was utilizing ARPA funds. So the city then has to obligate these funds by the end of the calendar year. So we now have the opportunity to reallocate these funds towards other projects.
I don't see any reason to wait. 90 grand is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mission, yeah, so, this is change order number what, 3?
Change order number 3.
So, I think a motion would be in order to approve change order number 3 in the amount of 89,000 and change, whatever Mason just said.
So-
And Courtney, you agree with this, right?
Yes, I do.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, anything else on this project?
Pawtucket, no.
Okay, you got a tough act to follow that you created now, so talk to us.
I should always save that one for last lately, but it's hard to have it.
So talk to us about Wading River.
Okay, the temporary PFAS facility is still in construction. The building, and I have pictures to share of that too. Actually, I can do that while I'm talking, and then I can get back on screen. Excuse me. But the building, the actual shell is complete. And I don't have as much exciting to show on this because the bulk of the equipment's not installed yet. Here is the okay, is that showing up?
Yep.
Yep.
It is, okay, good. So there's the oh my gosh. Okay, the outside of the building, and we're about ready for a site visit here too. We're looking at December to January, and again, like I talked about last month, the long lead times on here is the ductile iron pipe, and the actual PFAS vessels themselves. All of that, like everything's been approved for submittals, so everything's being constructed, the pipe is on order. We're just kind of waiting for it. But if you do go by this site, it's kind of hard to get to right now because DOT is doing the bridge right next door. But if you do end up over there, the color scheme was chosen. If you look how well it shows up on the screen here is about how well you can see it there. It just kind of blends into the woods, and that was the intent. It is actually going to be staying as part of the permanent plant project, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. There's still not a heck of a lot to see inside. Here's the inside of the building. You can see where the placement of the vessels is actually going to be going. Excuse me. It doesn't look like much since the last pictures, but again, the outside of the building is complete. HVAC is complete. The VFDs for the pumps are installed. So the bulk is just waiting on those vessels. In the meantime, the work will be involved with site restoration, restoring the pavement that was disturbed and that sort of thing.
Okay, any questions for Courtney? We do have a bill to pay on this one. So it looks like Bishko, application number 3, $497,705.
Correct. And additionally, so this bill was previously approved by you in your capacity as the chair. So we're looking to ratify for this bill. The reason was it was approved a couple weeks ago was actually we had a deadline for submission of invoices paid related to PFAS and some PFAS litigation that the city is a party to. So by going ahead and paying this invoice preemptively and submitting it, we're eligible for potential reimbursement on this project that we might not have been if we hadn't paid that invoice.
So Mason and I discussed it and agreed that I should sign it and ask you for ratification afterwards because certainly financially favorable to the city to do it that way. Almost $500,000 is not a number to be trifled with, right? So, and Courtney, you're okay with paying this?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All
Jack,
right,
Just a general question. Will future invoices from this contract be eligible for, or was it the date and
Yeah, so
that's
it's
the line in the sand?
So it's a good question. So we had submitted the entire value of the contracts as well, sort of the outstanding values on anything that we've sort of encumbered related to PFAS expenses to date. The litigation, like those pieces, the actual amounts are sort of ongoing, and we've gotten multiple directions of, hey, submit everything you've billed as well as submit anything that's under contract. But definitely submitting actual invoices that have been paid is more advantageous to us. So we just wanted to get in everything that we could, that we had on hand at the time. But we also have provided them documentation for all the contracts we have in place. So there's potential for additional. We just don't know the structure of how they're going to actually disperse those funds.
Okay.
okay. Anything else on the temporary? I guess we move to permanent?
I'm sorry?
Move to permanent?
Yes, permanent, we're currently working with, Mansfield, on the site plan application and the notice of intent, everything's signed, and with Mansfield, their Concom meeting, I wanna say is September 11th, relatively early this month. There's nothing that's been communicated from them that we're not gonna get approval, nothing like that. They've been in the loop the whole time. We're currently internally reviewing 75% construction plans, and we expect to get the spec book within the next week or so. Again, 75%. We're just about through review on that, and we will be meeting with the consultant later this week.
I'm going to suggest that to keep the commission in the loop, that at some point in the not too distant future, that maybe we ought to have whoever the consultant is and you show us, basically what the plans are and what's incorporated in it, just so we can have some measure of oversight, Courtney?
Sure.
You can
Do you prefer that at the October meeting, or would you like something before then?
check with Mason, because we may have to have a school building committee meeting that night as well, so check with Mason.
Okay, so maybe a different night.
Maybe that night, maybe a different night,
Okay.
but check with him. Anything else on that?
No, we're still on track to meet our October deadline. And again, that October deadline is we need all plans and specs to Mass DEP, and that's relative to the SRF funding, and everything needs to be 95%. And we're hurrying to do it, but we're right on track.
Good, good, excellent. Any other questions for Courtney on that? Okay, then, thank you, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, time for the library.
Absolutely.
Mark, do you want to approach? And I note that we have the executive director, is that your title? Amy?
Yes.
And I thought I saw Diane
Diane
Mangiarotti
Mangiarotti's here as well.
from the board.
Yeah.
Can't see you.
Excuse
So
me?
we have seats if they want to join.
You mean have them come?
Yeah, if they want to drive, saying.
Sure, come on up.
You guys want to join
Matt, right
join
in
the
front
party?
row, Diane, come on.
You just got an upgrade.
Right.
Somebody can be the city clerk and somebody can sit over here.
Where do you want us? Over here?
Even Diane, you can go over there.
Over there. Oh, yes.
Oh, actually, yeah, go over there. That's good.
Good
So,
evening.
Mark, we have 6 applicants.
Yes, so a little bit of a story. Port Construction Consulting was engaged as of July 1st to assist the city in overseeing the library, initially carpeting replacement project. When I made a site visit to document existing conditions, I saw that it also involved some VCT, vinyl composition tile, and potentially other miscellaneous flooring. So we changed the name of the project from a carpet replacement to a flooring replacement. So also during that site visit, well, I'll get into that. So the first step of the process was for Port to generate an RFQ, request for qualifications, for designer services pursuant to MGL Chapter 7. So we went through a process with city staff and Amy Reilinger for understanding what the project scope was. We also identified a number of issues and challenges, working obviously in an occupied building with children and others. So in essence, the RFQ, request for qualifications from designers, attempted to address phasing challenges, or understanding that this was going to be a phased project, was going to require an element of move management, and move management is handled in the Commonwealth through combis with certified vendors, should that be required. We also have indoor air quality monitoring and testing, hazardous material testing to make sure that any of the adhesives and glues underneath the existing carpeting or flooring are not hazardous. Obviously, we have the issue of book stacks and lots of books. I believe that the bottom shelf of the book stacks is a removable item. So rather than taking all the books off, removing the entirety of all the book stacks, the possibility exists, and we'll figure this out with the architect during the design phase, as to whether or not new carpeting or flooring could be installed around the existing book stacks with the bottom shelf only removed. It's a potential course of action, but one that would save the city considerable monies. Obviously, speaking of money, we need to make sure that the project is designed to a budget. So the RFQ understood that there might be some alternates or options that would be available to the city to select from in order, should that be desired. The schedule, I was given a mandate to have the project 100% complete, closed out for September 30th of 2025. So the project schedule that Port generated and went into the RFQ and was requested to be regurgitated by the respondents, all ensured that the project would be complete by that timeline. Obviously, the materials that we put in need to be appropriate and durable. The last carpeting, the last flooring had lasted, I think, several decades, so it's time. And
Amy, was this original to the 1993
Much of it is.
especially the carpeting.
And is this in the historic building as well, or is this only in the addition?
In the historic building as well, the sides of the marble lobby are carpeted.
So it's just that area?
Some of the mosaics that are covered over with carpeting
Right. Yep.
are also scheduled to be addressed.
There are mosaics that we can't see?
Yes,
Yes.
beautiful,
Planning
beautiful
to restore
floors.
them?
We'll see what's underneath.
Part of the design process was to investigate, remove what was there, see the quality and the status of it, to determine whether or not it should be uncarpeted and opened up, an area rug or some other solution be installed.
So Mark, to your knowledge, back in 92, 93, were they still using asbestos adhesives in those days?
No, they were not in the 90s. But we also
So
have,
we're hopeful that the hazardous waste issue will be minor
if any, we're hoping. The 12 by, most of the, all the vinyl composition tile, VCT, that we saw was all 12 by 12. It's the 9 by 9 tile that is generally of an age that had the asbestos adhesives. So I'm hopeful and confident that we don't have any hazardous materials, but nonetheless, part of my, as a construction consultant, I'm more of a risk, I'm as much a risk manager on these projects. So we have to follow the process
You
and
have
do
to
the
plan
test.
for the worst, right?
Exactly. And we're assigning that risk to the architect here. Through the RFQ, they are responsible for the indoor air quality. They're responsible for the hazardous material testing and other risk management type elements. So we tried to be extraordinarily comprehensive within the RFQ. Speaking of comprehensiveness, I just got a couple more bullet points that were in there, are the accessibility issues. There are a couple of areas within the building that have some trip hazards where flooring is not as consistent, and trip hazards exist. Also, the height of some of the transitions would need to be smoothed out, and there's a process within the RFQ for that. And then lastly, under the ADA, there's also an element of those that are visually or sight impaired. Right now, there is not color differentiation between at stairways or something like that. So there is a code requirement that the architects need to address if we're going to touch that flooring, or if the building official requires it, where we would have to address, or the city wants to address it at the stairways, for instance, the beautiful monumental stair, the existing rubber treads would have to be replaced with a different color that is of contrast. And generally, historic buildings don't like yellow, or yellow and black, or something that does that. I did the Taunton City Hall, and beautiful brand new building, and the stairway, my opinion. Anyway, so. In essence, the RFQ attempted to address all of the needs of the building while being in full compliance with the Office of Inspector General requirements for procurement of designer services. And speaking of that, the RFQ, because this is going out to licensed architects and going to be responded, or was responded by licensed architects, they are certified by the Commonwealth in architecture. So we had to come up with a differentiation, as we did on the police station and the fire departments before that, of comparative analysis. That is, you look at the RFQ, all the requirements contained therein, and then compare each of the respondents' responses and how they compared to each other in order to rank and or select and or decide whether or not you're going to interview all of the respondents or some or how many. So the RFQ went out in late June.
June 24th, potentially.
Yeah, it went out in late June, and we had a walkthrough on August 16th. And I think we had 4 or so attendees, and we got six responses. So when the responses came in, I took them, I read every word of every page of every document, and I filled out a matrix, which I forwarded to Mason, in order to assist the MBC in its discussion tonight, in order to, rank these, review the comparative qualities of the responses and figure out who or all, which or all of the respondents did the MBC want to interview in order to comply with OIG requirements.
So let me suggest a way we can cut to the chase.
Yep.
There were two who did not acknowledge addendum 1 according to the matrix that I saw that you prepared. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate.
Neither SSV nor David King.
SSV and King?
Correct. And I believe,
And it just so happens that in my own read-through, those were the two that I ranked 5th and 6th. And Gail, who isn't here tonight, a member of the commission, sent an email that Mason can read to us for what that's worth. But my suggestion is that if this commission is satisfied, that we could choose to eliminate those two for failure to respond, and we could interview the other 4 next week. We wouldn't be time pressured. We'd be starting at 5 o'clock at the Zito room. How does that sound to the group?
Great, me.
I have a
I agree.
question first.
Yep.
Can you tell me the 4 that did show up to the walkthrough?
Yes, I can. What's that?
I have it right here.
Okay, go for it.
So, Socotec, so Andrew Barr from Socotec showed up. There was a gentleman from D21 Architects, who I do not believe was a respondent.
Well, he was. D21 was actually partnering with SSV.
Correct. He was also there.
But there were DSB problems with that relationship.
Correct. So SSV was ultimately the responding firm. They also had a representative, and then, Amy as the library director was the city staff on site. So there were three outside participants, 2
Right.
from the same response.
Socotec and SSV.
So I'll throw it open for thoughts, and you asked the question, so go right ahead.
Oh, I'm personally good with cutting it down to 4 myself.
And those 4,
Would be the CSS, what was it, LLB,
yep.
Mats, and Socotec.
Ed, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I thought LLB and then Sociotech. And for what reason? One, they're located in Pawtucket. They're a small outfit with 6 principals and 21 employees. And they seem to be interested in a combination of carpeting and vinyl. And they did the Boyden Library over in Foxborough.
Would you be comfortable with interviewing 4, Ed?
I didn't hear you.
Would you be comfortable with interviewing 4, eliminating SSV and King?
I'm very much in favor of eliminating those 2. I think possibly we could eliminate another one. I don't have a name for that, but 3 seems to be a more workable number of applicants.
It would just mean that we'd spend less time tonight.
Well,
If
not
we
only
decided
that,
to
but
interview 4, but,
I wouldn't be opposed to it, but traditionally we do about 3.
we have done 4 on occasion.
Yeah, we've done 4, yeah.
Yeah,
That's my feeling on it.
what's our time allocated to each?
Well, I think we can give them 20 minutes, we can give them a half an hour, we can do whatever we think is appropriate. If we start at 5 and we finish at 7, not a problem for me.
Mr. Chair and members of the Municipal Building Commission, in the OIG guidelines for designer service procurement, there's a process to evaluate the applicants and select at least 3 finalists. So whether you select 3 or 4, the OIG's guideline is a minimum of 3. But in addition to that, they also want the MBC to rank them. So I understand that you ranked 2 firms as 5 and 6 in essence. But between now and the 11th, or if that's when you're going to do that, there should be a ranking of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So my recommendation was each voting member of the commission rank 1 to 6, and we can take the average of the voting members of the commission.
We can certainly do that. And if we agree, seems the consensus is, we agree on 4, is that the consensus? Okay, then, we'll start with you, Jay. Give us your,
1 through 6?
yeah,
Socotech 1. I'll do Mats 2. CSS 3. LLB 4. SSV 5 and King 6.
thank you. Ed,
Well, I have LLB 1, Sociotech 2, and that's as far as I went on my ranking.
we'll tell you what, we'll pass you, you figure out 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Terry?
I had LLB 1, Socotech 2, CSS 3, Mats 4, and King 5, and then SSV 6.
Jackie?
I'll go SSV at the bottom, because they said town. I don't like town. We are not a town.
Attention to
And
detail.
the King S5. And then I'll go Socotech 1, CSSI, Maths 3, and LLB 4. So,
And who's 2?
CSS.
Got that, Mason?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll go with Terry.
Jerry?
I'm going to abstain from voting because I didn't rank them. I didn't know that had to have this done for tonight. I thought we were doing it next week.
Okay. Any thoughts you want to share with us?
I looked at it and I see that the note that there was 2 of them that didn't submit all the information, and for that reason they should be kicked out.
I agree. So you would rank King and SSV 5 and 6 in some way?
Correct, yep.
And I think that was the basis of Gail's email as well, right, Mason?
That's correct. I mean, if you'd like, I could provide Gail's feedback. I don't think it should be included in the.
I agree, but
scoring,
it's just
but-
that she did say that. If
Do you want me to read it?
Read it out.
Yeah, so Gail specifically wanted to share her feedback. She was a little under the weather today, but Gail thought that Mats did not seem to be a fit for Attleboro. Don't feel they have the experience we're looking for. SSV referred to Attleboro as a town, which I was
See.
willing to overlook once as a mistake. However, I found the error several places in the proposal. On page 17, they referred to this as a window replacement project. Poor proofreading on their part. David King, they could do the job. However, I was not overly impressed with the proposal. That leaves Socotech, LLB, and CSS remaining. LLB, I feel they have the experience and are local. Socotech, past experience with the city, familiar with how the city operates and the stakeholders. CSS, good presentation in the proposal. MCPPO experience, renovation experience is extensive, and have a team ready to go. I would rank them as 1 LLB, 2 Socotech, 3 CSS.
Okay. Andrew?
I had Socotech 1, LLB 2, CSS, Mats, and then King and SSB.
Okay. Ed, have you completed your review?
Yeah, I would say 3 UEC, Framingham, CSS 4, King 5, and SSV 6.
Okay. I had Matt's number 1. The size of the firm was a drawback, but the fact that they looked at an occupied building and talked about logistics was impressive to me. I had CSS 2. I had LLB 3. And they mentioned the move manager, but lot of what they had in their application referred to July of 2016, so I wondered about that. Socotec, I had 4. We know them. They had a good plan that they set forth here. They're certainly very large, and I had King 5th, and I don't know that we really need historic preservation or library design work, which is what they seem to be pitching. They also just didn't seem to kind of get what we were looking for. And then I had SSV last, and I wrote down town, but I also thought that they just didn't understand the project, and so that was my reasoning. So those were the 6. So I think it's pretty clear, Mason, that you can tell us what the final ranking turned out to be, if you can now. If not, you can do it later, but clearly the 4 that we're going to interview would be Matt's LLB, Socotec,
CSS.
So,
CSS.
so just from an average standpoint, Socotec was ranked with the lowest average or highest average rank. The average rank was 1.83 out of the 6 members choosing to submit a ranking. Second would have been LLB Architects with an average ranking of 2.5. Third would be CSS with an average ranking of 2.83. Matt's Collaborative would be 4th with an average ranking of 3, and then a pretty big delta to the 5th ranked at being David King at an average of 5.16, and SSV at the 6th ranked with an average of 5.83. So definitely some pretty big gap between the top 4 and the bottom 2.
Which makes our decision fairly clear. But before we take a vote, Amy, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share with us?
I highlighted LLB because of all of their library experience, and I also highlighted CSS and Maths because they talked about the move planning, and those are my biggest pieces in the game.
Okay.
I appreciated that Socotec is known to the city, but I just, replacing a roof and gym floors are not the same as 3 levels of a public building that sees almost 400 people in a day. And that's just something.
Oh, I think the logistics is going to be the overriding factor in my mind. How to get this done in an occupied building is just.
It was a huge factor in the renovation when HVAC was in the lower floors.
Yeah. And Diane, did you look at them or not?
No, I didn't, but I trust that this commission will make the best choice.
Well,
You've done a
thank you.
good job in the past, so.
Thank you for
All
the
the buildings.
endorsement.
So before
And
you vote.
anything you want to add, Mark?
Well, yeah, I think that it would be prudent for prior to next week or at the interview, within the matrix that had comparative evaluation, it may be important, it may not be, about the firm size and whether and who the assigned staff is. For instance, we talked about Matt's. Yes, it's a small firm, and the principal is the only architect. And he indicated within the 4 corners of the document that he was committed for the design phase only, but they did not identify anybody for construction administration or during construction. And so there are, in material selection, they don't have an interior designer, someone that would pick the materials that are very important to the city and for longevity, off-gassing, and other things like that. So I think there's some questioning that could go on having to do with the staff and the assigned staff and who's actually going to be doing the work. The move planning is certainly very important, and who included move planning and who didn't. Third-party cost estimating. Matt's is principal. The project manager had 0 years with the firm, and versus some others with assigned staff. So I think that within the matrix and their direct responses to the RFQ, did they submit boilerplate, or did they submit project-specific responses? And that's really where I tried to delve into it in order to get a true comparative evaluation from it. So, as a for instance, their LLB, highly ranked on their project approach, is all boilerplate. It really had nothing to do with your project in particular, whereas Socotec or CSS was extraordinarily specific to the project. So those are the types of criteria and questions that I think will come out during the interview phase next week that will help the MBC decide who ultimately it's going to select.
Do we need a standard list of questions? Because a lot of times I just say, tell us why we should hire you, and you got 20 minutes, and then we'll ask questions. So, either Mark or Mason, do you have a suggestion on that?
I think it's helpful to give them an opportunity to expand on their project approach, from their perspective, like if they want to have 5 minutes to kind of give their pitch on their approach to the project, and expanding on just what they had written in the proposal. But it's also important that I think we have some standard questions. I think one of the things I've found with when I've done interviews for projects or done like RFPs and evaluated is actually figuring out sometimes what's in the proposal on who's going to be working on it doesn't actually match up to the actual individuals that.
Are you going to get the A team or the B team
right.
or the C team?
So that's always super important, is to figure out, what is their actual time availability. They might say, 50% of their time will be dedicated to the project. Since they've submitted their proposal, there's potential that their projects have changed, right? It's only been a few weeks, but you'd be surprised. So I think some of those standard questions are super important, as well as, asking some of the specifics where on their approach to certain components of the scope, because I think I identified 3 that were extremely boilerplate responses, and I thought there were definitely 2 firms that had the most project specific. But giving those firms an opportunity to kind of hone in on the project, but also asking the specifics to those firms that provided it. So, I think we should probably have some standard questions that we can work through, but
If you
I also
and
think
Mark
that
want to work up a group of them, I'm thinking that maybe what we should do is tell each of them, we're going to give you 20 minutes to make a presentation. We'll have questions afterwards for 10 minutes, so it'll be a 30-minute presentation. But in your presentation, if you want to touch on the following topics, if you give us those standard ones and give them to them, I think that might be a helpful way of doing things. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think 20 minutes might be a lot. They should have laid out their response
Give
pretty
them
clearly.
15 and tell them we'll reserve 15 for questions then?
But yeah, that seems more reasonable.
And have somebody come in at 5 after 5 and then 5:35 and et cetera, and be finished by, start deliberating at 7:05ish. Does that work?
Amy, does that work for you?
So I have a board meeting at 6:30 on Wednesday, so Diane, you and I can work that out. Maybe I just come in late.
Or maybe you could invite the board to appear,
We could have a field trip.
and you could hold your board meeting then
In the Zito room?
Yeah,
in the
school
Zito
committee
room or
yeah.
something. You can go in one end and we'll be, it's whatever you want to do.
We'll figure it out, and I'm looking forward to interviews.
Okay, and so then you're going to pick the names out of a hat as to the order?
Yeah, I think, that's fine. I think we can offer different times, and then we'll try to be flexible on.
Yeah, if somebody can't make 5,
Right,
but they
right.
can make 6, then, we should accommodate them, so.
Mark, so I think there was clearly 4, at least with everyone's kind of input, there was clearly 4 top-ranked respondents and a pretty big gap between the low 2. Did you want to provide your kind of input on where you felt?
Sure. I actually did a scoring matrix, and it was intentionally withheld because I didn't want to influence you. So I had CSS as 1, and I can tell you the rationale for that, but it's, if requested. I had Socotec as 2, I had LLB as 3, I had MATS as 4, and then I had SSV as 5, and David King as 6. And again,
So that very much complies with the sense of the commission, I think.
right.
The only reason I'm not gonna ask you to expand is that in 11 minutes, the Conservation Commission thinks that they have this room.
Certainly. So next steps are interview on the 11th, and then you'll be making a vote.
We'll hold a business meeting after those interviews in the Zito room, starting as soon as we finish the interviews.
Okay, so
And
obviously,
we'll spend as much time as we need, and hopefully by 7:30, we'll be out of it.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So basically, as you know, I like to move with a great deal of velocity because time is money, and obviously, I know the city's anxiety over the multiple funding sources and the needs to spend certain things down. So I am appreciative of the fact that you've scheduled a special meeting, and I want to thank you for that. So gratitude.
That's what we do. So thank you for that, and I guess then a motion would be in order to interview the 4 top candidates.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion?
Bill, do you want me to name the candidates?
Sure.
All right, so the 4 top being CSS Architects, LLB Architects, Matt's Collaborative, and Socotec AE.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we gotta pay Mark's bill, $3,375, which indicates to me that he did read every word and every proposal, but I'm not criticizing Mark. We're glad that you did that. So is there a motion to pay his bill?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Did we do everything that we need to do tonight, Mason?
I believe so. Yeah, we discussed the next meeting, so, yep, good to go.
Okay, then we'll see you all next week in the Zito room, and we need a motion to adjourn.
At 5 o'clock.
6:21.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.